All right, Adam, practice number 2 for the spring. A little bit of a breezy day in Boulder here. But we decided to come down to the lower practice fields, which the Buffs aren't using right now, but it's kind of nostalgia for us. This is how many hours do you think we've spent standing outside these gates?
Many fun hours, because back in the day when we got to watch football practice, that really just fueled in kind of transitioning to some of the conversations we have with new coaches today. Mm-hmm. The practice fields invigorate something within you.
Yeah.
Even as a media person, it's just fun. Like you learn every walk on that's out there. So not as much insight into the program for traditional media now, but this is Thursday. Denzel Washington talks to the team. We get a chance to talk to Marshall Faulk, Hall of Famer. Yeah. It's different now, but it's still very fun.
Yeah, I was thinking, lots of conversations sitting on those steps with players over the years that, you kind of miss some of those things. But it was good stuff today. I mean, we got 4 of the new assistants today, Marshall Faulk being one of them, George Hilo, Gunnar White, as well as Domata Peko. Lots of energy in the room today. And let's start with Marshall Faulk, who obviously the Hall of Famer, comes in here and, tremendous running back during his time, and he talked about how he resisted getting into coaching for a long time, and now the timing is just right for him, in his life where his kids are older, and it's just he's been groomed, he said, by Coach Prime to be in this position. The timing's right for him, but man, it was fun listening to him talk football and talk about and be very adamant that they are going to be better running the football.
Yeah, well, I would start by this, that Coach Prime has created an environment here in Boulder where Hall of Famer can come here and really feed that part of their energy and what they want to give back to these younger players because of what the game gave to them. Warren Sapp's obviously in that same group, but they're not asked to work 90 hours a week. They've got a recruiting staff that does lights out in that standpoint. So Marshall Faulk comes into that press conference today, and if you had any worries about him being a first-time college head coach or position coach, just watch that interview because he's got a plan. He's so well versed in every aspect of being a running back. I don't know if there's a person on the planet that hasn't coached running backs that's more suited for this role than Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, and he was actually asked, because the entire group is back from last year, and he was asked, is that a benefit as you guys start, that they know what's expected? He goes, well, it didn't show up on day one, so he's got a high standard, and I think that's what you want to hear, is that not only does he know the position probably as well as anybody, like you mentioned, but he's bringing that high standard, which Coach Prime has as well.
And you asked about the financial literacy. He brings so much to this program in so many regards. And so, you asked the recruiting staff to hit the road, and these guys can be here in Boulder. And, it's been a cool thing as somebody that's been around here. You're a Colorado native. To see people come out here not having all that familiarity with Colorado and going, holy crap, this is a really awesome place to be. And I think Marshall Faulk is going to warm up to that over the coming months.
Yeah, I would think so, and I think a lot of Buff fans would hope so. And Domata Peko is one that has warmed up to Colorado, and he enjoyed playing here for a couple of years. I think his only connection to the University of Colorado might have been playing with Philip Lindsay and the great Philip Lindsay impression that he gave when he was playing with the Broncos. But he talked highly of Philip Lindsay, but just how excited he is to be here after working with the Dallas Cowboys last year.
Yeah, to hear him bring up Big Phil the way he did in that press conference is awesome, because obviously he's revered around here, and he's taken notice of the fact that Philip Lindsay's got a big old mural in the indoor practice facility. And I would love to be there for that conversation when Philip Lindsay and Domata Peko get together, maybe for a lunch here in Boulder. But again, energy, you can tell there's a big passion for coaching up these younger guys, and they had a really good defensive line coach last year in Damian Lewis.
Yeah.
And maybe he got kind of overshadowed by Warren Sapp because Warren Sapp is a Hall of Famer. So it's big shoes to fill, but he's got maybe the best group on this team.
Right.
If you really think about it,
right,
from a depth standpoint at least.
Yeah. And And experience-wise, he mentioned 5 or 6 seniors. I think it might even be more than that. I mean, it seems like that whole room is almost seniors. I mean, not only the guys that are back, but the guys they brought in are seniors. So he's got a lot of guys that he even kind of alluded to it, that they're hungry. It's their last year, and they want to suck up as much as they can and be the best they can be as seniors. And so, and he's still got Warren Sapp next to him, and he's got George Hilo. So, it's 2 guys that were here last year, and so I think that group's going to be just as good as far as that coaching group. Obviously last year there was a lot of attention on Damian Lewis, Sapp, and Vincent Dancy. I think it's still a pretty good trio of coaches over there.
Yeah, and transitioning to George Hilo, he has built this chemistry with Livingston, and he talked about all the stops he's been at, and talked about a lot of the Hilo talked about a lot of the coaches that he's learned under, and it's like, but it still comes down to chemistry, for really good teams, and that's something that he mentioned. And so I'm anxious to see how that goes. You can't force chemistry. You've got some different personalities in that group, but they all seem like personalities that have the same aligned mindset, right? In terms of they feed off these young college players and enjoy kind of the teaching aspect of things. Hilo was really Livingston's eyes up in the press box last year. I asked him about that, and he talked about their history together. That's been a really good 1-2 punch defensively on that staff.
Yeah, he did mention Sam Okunlola, Keaton Wade are both out right now. I don't know the extent of their injuries, but he did mention with Okunlola, I'm looking forward to working with him in the fall. So it must be something that's going to keep him out at least for this month. So, but that group, I know you and I are both high in that group. They got a lot of pass rushers back from last year. And speaking of pass rushers and stopping them, let's transition to offensive line, because that's what that group has to do. Gunnar White is the new line coach. He's working with Andre Garrod and George Hageman. And one of those hires that I think of the 4, Buff fans are probably the least excited about, just because he was that internal hire, just gets promoted. But man, he's been with Coach Prime for a number of years now, and I think the track record is, if Coach Prime trusts you, you're doing something right, and so you deserve the opportunity.
Yeah, and it's going back to Jackson State. Coach Prime has watched his development as an offensive line coach. I think as a college fan, you want that sexy name to get named there. Yeah. And Gunnar White just isn't that, because he's not a household name, right, like a Marshall Faulk or a Domata Peko, right? But he's been around for a very long time. Yeah. I actually have less questions about this hire than I did Phil Loadhole a year ago. Yeah. And nothing against Loadhole, it just was a little bit more uncertain. He hadn't been a full-time offensive line coach, and good for him going out to Mississippi State and getting that job out there. But you've got more help now on the O-line, because you've got less restrictions on how many on-the-field coaches can help out in practices. So, I mean, hope springs eternal. Everybody's optimistic this time of year, but I didn't have a problem with the Gunnar White hire, because he had been around Coach Prime for many years, and he had been able to see kind of how he relates to these guys. And I'll tell you, the O-line recruiting has been pretty solid, and you got to get these kids on campus, get some commits for that to really solidify itself in terms of a strong endorsement from the recruiting front. But I would say that the number of top-level offensive linemen in this 2026 class is more than there was a year ago at this time. And they had a good class. They got Chauncey Gooden and Carday Smith, and that was a good class as well. But I'm firmly in the wait-and-see approach. If that long-winded answer didn't provide that for you.
Well, the other thing, and you and I were kind of joking about this a week or two ago, but it seems like the track record around here is that there's a pattern of the hire that the fans are least excited about turns out to be the best hire. And there's been a number of times that's happened. Like I remember who was the defensive line coach a few years ago under McIntyre that came in. He not a whole lot of experience, but ended up being really popular. Quan Drake. Yeah. He was one, and Buff fans were disappointed when he left, and by the time he left. And so I think you got to give the benefit of the doubt. And to me, with the Gunnar White hire, with all these hires, it's so far worked out with a lot of these hires with Coach Prime, and so you give them the benefit of the doubt and say, all right, let's go. And that's what matters is do they mesh as a staff, and can they teach these guys? And from what my early perspective, I think it's a good group.
Where the issue comes in is if a hire doesn't work out and the head coach is loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
We've seen that around here a lot.
Yeah.
Coach Prime is not that.
Right.
So Gunnar White gets his opportunity, and he's got to make the most of it.
If it doesn't work out, Coach Prime will move on. We're almost sure of that. So a lot to get to throughout spring, and next week we're going to be able to talk to Coach Prime, and so we'll be back next Monday.